All right. I want to thank everyone for joining us for another Great Money Monday. This is your host, Rosalind Brown of Your Wealth Guidance. Every single Money Monday, we come to you with actionable insights that you can implement as you are on your financial independence journey. We want to take you through a number of different routes because we understand that some people are going to want to start a business, some people are going to work their 9 to 5s, but there are some people who really want to look at real estate as a great vehicle for them to get to financial independence. And so today we have some great guests, and I always like to include people who have done it because I want you to see that it is possible. So we are going to talk about pride and ownership, financial independence and retire early, leaving a legacy, the importance of passive income. And so we have Ken Fennell, a BA in psychology from FAMU, an MBA in human resources, Lieutenant Colonel of the U.S. Army, retired, and his last job was working on the Joint Staff in the Pentagon. And he co-owns Fannel Signature Investments with Miss Tammy. BS in biology from South Carolina State University, an MBA in human resources, a PhD in leadership and development. We got a lot of education right here, so definitely be here to learn some things. And also a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army. Thank you both for your service. Last job was working on the Pentagon Army staff and owns a signature artesian soap company. So they also have 3 children. And most importantly, they are financially independent. And so without further ado, I want to go ahead and turn things over to our host today and let them share some insights on how they did it. And then, of course, how we can take some great insights and advice from them as well. Ken and Tammy?
All right. Hey, thanks, Rosalind, for that great intro. I want to say it's an honor and a privilege to be speaking today to you for this group. I ask that you hold all the questions to the end and send the questions to Rosalind. I want to also hold on one second. Hold on one second, Rosalind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Yep. I want to also begin today's conversation by saying that in the conversation of generational wealth, that we already know enough on this subject. We really do. It's not the knowledge that we lack. What's missing is the courage to understand what we know and to draw conclusions. So in this brief, hopefully we can help you draw some conclusions, and I hope this helps out a lot. Okay. So I'm gonna go over about 7 slides with you. This slide right here is just a facial slide of some quotes that I like and that speak to me. Can you go to the next slide, Rosalind? Okay, for many of us, this is the financial independence big picture. But for many of us, we start our financial journey in this top row. And for some, we never leave. In this portion of our life, we're going on in the opposite direction of financial freedom. Me and Tammy, we were no different. When we were in the debt column up here, it was like we're in a company-owned boat rowing out deep into the ocean of debt. For us, we're about $450,000 in debt, and it felt like 450 miles into the middle of the sea. What we've seen was, like, when you're in the middle of the sea like that, you can't really own anything of value. And it felt like we were just working to pay off interest. It felt like we were in economic slavery. It was weird because it was a slave ship that we voluntarily got into, and that we were navigating ourselves. We were doing this to ourselves. Why were we doing this? We were doing this because we were stuck in the currents, in the ocean currents, in the current events, and keeping up with the Joneses. And the further that we went out into the debt voyage, the further we got from our freedom. Once we realized this, we moved down into the second level here. And that second level, that's the debt destruction. So the debt destruction, the beginning of this phase is you have to mentally turn around the boat. And that's what we had to do. And I mean, once we mentally turned around the boat, I mean, it seemed like we're going downstream. Now, the good thing about this situation was that all boats aren't made the same. So me and Tammy, we're not driving a regular boat anymore. Like when we first got into that, I mean, we were working in high paying jobs, and I mean, luckily, me and her were going in the same direction now, and we were both working to pay off these debts. And it felt like it was a speedboat. It felt like things were moving fast, but it really took about 3 years. We took it month by month by month, and you know, once we got there, once we got into the debt freedom zone, it was like we were on land again, and we could finally have goals because if if you now had that good financial foundation, you can build on solid ground, and that's what it felt like. So from there, we're able to build a nest egg, figure out what our retirement number was, and work towards it, and we're beginning to turn our earned income into passive income by investing in real estate. Can you go to the next slide? All right. Now, what we experienced at the beginning of that journey, we're witnessing the tale of two paychecks. And what we found by talking to our poor friends and talking to our rich friends was that the only difference between rich and poor people is how they spend their paycheck at the end of the month. Now, when we're in the bad debt zone, we only invested about 5% of our paycheck. And I mean, we did that through limited means. I mean, everybody invests 5% of their paycheck because they pay down their mortgage, they pay down their car. So, I mean, this wasn't deliberate investing. We had no generational wealth on this left-hand side because all we had was our jobs, and we could not transfer our ranks or our positions to our kids. And we got minimum fruits of our labor. We got nothing for it. We were building something that was truly not ours, and we got the crumbs that were heavily taxed. We paid a lot of taxes. And on top of this, we would have had to have done that forever. We would have had to work until we're 67 years old. And nobody knows if you're going to see 67. Now, on the other side, um, we moved to debt freedom. And on that right-hand column, you see that we started investing 35% of our income in the assets that we controlled. And as far as generational wealth, we built stuff that we can pass down to our children. The real estate that we bought, I mean, that stuff can stay in our family for 50 to 100 years. And as business owners, we reap the full benefits of our labor. And we're now tax favored because there's not much earned income to tax. And on top of all that, we're able to outlive our retirement. And we always tell people that don't outlive your retirement. You know, we haven't outlived it. I mean, we're 40 years young. I just turned 42 the other day. And I mean, we're happy. I mean, we're living our best lives right now. And can you go on to the next slide? All right, so our go-to investment was real estate. So for us at the time, and it may be different for you, I mean, but real estate's been good to us. The best thing that we could do with our money was real estate. And let me explain why. I mean, a lot of people like to compare real estate and stocks. For us, there is no comparison. With real estate, I mean, you can take $20,000, 20%, and take control of a property and leverage the rest. And you could take that $20,000 that you invested into, let's say, $100,000 house. And I'm making an example of this. I'm using big round numbers, but we've actually done this a couple times. You could take $20,000 and invest it into a $100,000 house, and that you make $1,000 in rent a month for, and you can make a 55% rate of return. That sounds pretty astronomical, but I mean, let me go through it and show it to you. So this is just in 1 year, and I'll start right here at the top. But let's first talk about equity. In 1 year's time frame, you'll pay down your house by about $1,800. That's what you're going to pay on your principal. The rest will go to interest. You're not going to pay a lot on principal during your first year. The other thing that you can do is you can depreciate your home for 27.5 years. That's going to end up as a write-off for about $1,000 a year for the next 27.5 years. Cash flow, meaning the cash that's left over after all expenses are paid, it should be about $400 a month. If you're making about $1,000 in on for rent. So that means after all of your mortgage, your insurance, property management, your maintenance, I mean, you're going to be left with about $400. You would have spent about 600. So it ends up being about 4.8K a year. And if we're talking just the US national average, and as you see this year, I mean, we're a little bit above that national average. If you're just national average on appreciation on real estate, you're talking about 3.5% a year. So that's another 3.5K. So, and then the last part is time. The time that you save by making money while you sleep, I mean, that's just priceless. So in total, I mean, you're going to end up with about $11,000 a year, 55%. And in 2 years, I mean, you get your money back. I mean, that's real estate in a nutshell. And like for us, I mean, we've been able to do that multiple times. We've bought and sell about 16 houses. We're down to 10 houses that we own, and I think we've paid 7 of them off. So we've got 3 mortgages. So I mean, we're doing very, very well, and that's the way we're able to retire at an early age. Can you go to the next slide, Rosalind? Now, I will say this. So real estate is our deal, but passive income is the real money. I mean, that's just the real money. So at the end of the day, it does not matter what your passive income stream is or what you use, just as long as you're doing what works for you. I mean, you could do anything. There are many ways of getting passive income, but I mean, real estate is work for us. There are basically 3 channels of investing that you can really work off of. I mean, it's pretty simple. Land and real estate is 1, 2 is stocks and bonds, and 3 is businesses. That's basically how people earn money in America. Learn about these 3 channels, and then learn how to form an estate plan so that when you die, those assets will live long after you're gone. There are many, but if you're starting your own business, or if you're just, still working, you must eventually make yourself redundant, and you must invest your time and resources in the assets that will pay you long after you stop working. Because if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you're going to be working until you die. And what you can gain from that is flexibility and opportunity. Like right now, if I wanted to start up a business or invest in a startup, I can, because I'm no longer tied to a desk or working a 9 to 5. So, I mean, you have that flexibility. So, I mean, for us, I mean, that's gold. That's priceless for us. Can you go to the next slide, Rosalind? Okay, so I'm gonna spend a little bit on this slide because this is what means a lot to me. So when you're talking about generational wealth, it really comes down to having pride and ownership. And this may offend a little bit of you, but your number one asset in investment in your life is you. You're the number one asset. It's not a broker, it's not a banker, it's not someone else's business, it's you. I mean, you've gotten where you need to go. Why would you hand money over to people who you barely know by buying stocks for a business that you don't know anything about? The first place you should invest is in yourself. Number 2, Your number one investment outside of yourself, it should be your own business. You should invest in assets, advertisements, businesses that you control. If you drop $25,000 directly on a paid advertisement towards Facebook, Instagram, or Google, you get a much better return than you would if you're investing in stocks in somebody else's company. Number three, it goes into what I just said, mind your own business. Unless you have ownership, it's not your dream. Full stop, end of discussion. That's business, that unit, that company, that political movement, that music, that sports team, you name it. None of this stuff is yours. You're just supporting someone else's dream. And if you don't build your own dream, someone will hire you to build theirs. You should not fight for something that you don't own. You should not build someone else's business or company or empire, and so you can take shares. You should not buy shares in someone else's company. They should buy shares in your company. You should not fight for other men and women. You should fight for you and your family. Number four, it's better for your children if you build your own businesses. At the end of the day, you have to do what's best for your children. They may not have it as well as you did. What's best for your children is for you to put your money into a business or asset you control, distress over it, grow it. Because when your child becomes an adult, he or she should have the option to not have to work for anybody. They should be able to work at their own job. That's what you've been working all this time for. You can pass it to them. So invest in income producing assets and businesses. Your children can't inherit your rank, grade, or position at work. Number five, own it. You're only the boss if you invest your own money. If you don't invest your own money, then you're nothing but a supervisor or a manager. It's not really yours. You don't own it unless you can give it to your children. Number six, business owners, they actually get to reap what they sow. Employees don't get to do this. Being a business owner is like owning a small farm on a large plot of land. Whether you and your family work the land or outsource the work, the owner reaps the full benefits of the harvest. They can then take the benefits and transfer it to grow the farm larger and larger until they run out of land. You don't reap the full benefits as an employee. You just don't. If you're employed, you only get the crumbs that fall off the table. The owner gets rich as they should because they're taking all the risk. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about our fire experience. And I'll start first off by saying, I mean, it has been surreal. These have been the best moments of my life. This 9 months that I haven't been working, and I've been spending like quality time and sharing, shared valued experiences with my wife and my family. It's like I've met a new person. Um, I was telling my wife the other day that I mean, I really felt sorry for our kids while we were doing all that work trying to get to where we are today. Because I wouldn't want to be them. I mean, because I just felt sorry for them because we're working so hard. Right now, I mean, this has been the only time that I can think of that, I've been a proud parent, that I've looked at my kids and I've said, man, those guys should be thankful that they have us as parents, because we've been able to do a lot of stuff with them, and it has been rich, and we've been having a very, very superb time, and I wouldn't give it up for the world. So after we were content with our expenses, our work then became timeless. We because we could do work even if we're not getting paid for it, like what we're doing right now. We became time rich. So time flies when you're working on someone else's terms. When we're working those 9 to 5 jobs, it goes by really, really fast. You're commuting for about 2 hours and you're working 9 to 5. So you're really only getting about 2 hours of personal time. When you live life on your terms, on your personal time, it increases the speed of life by like 5 times the rate of somebody who's still working, because you wake up when you want to. You're always rested. Sometimes we forget what time it is. We no longer waste time commuting. We do errands during non-peak travel times, and we just get tons more done. There are no more to-do lists. We do everything quickly. We never really get tired, and it just takes us a shorter time to do anything. I mean, we don't have these pages of to-do lists because we just go out and do it. Oh, what do I want to do tomorrow? And you just go do it. We have longer vacations, and we have time to live there. We don't have to be punching the clock and have to hurry up and get back. And we don't have to rush our vacations. We can enjoy it. Like, for instance, in a couple of weeks, we're going on a trip for about 2 months. We're going to be gone for about 2 months, and we're going to be traveling the whole United States. And we get back when we get back. Our only left and right limit right now is the kids going to school. So, I mean, it's lovely from that standpoint. Our health has improved dramatically, and we're spending a lot more time with our children. Um, we're not stressed anymore because of work. There's no need to push ourselves. And when others are sick, we can be there. When there's emergencies, we can be there. And we were never able to do that before. So, I mean, that's been truly a blessing. The third thing here, a better circle. We changed our circle. We changed our circle completely. Um, we put more positive people in our life. We no longer had to spend time with coworkers who don't share our interests or challenge us. We're able to go to conventions, meetups. We could do clubs such as this one, with people who enjoy the same things that we do. And lastly, we have complete freedom. We can choose how we spend our time. We choose if, when, where, how long, and what, and perhaps most importantly, with whom we work. We get to choose when we stop working and when we start again. And the best thing is we can focus on our own goals. You got anything on that, babe?
Oh, I'll say something at the end.
Okay. Um, can you go to the next slide? All right. So there's a lot of talk, and this may be a little bit controversial, but there's a lot of talk about reparations. And with Ice Cube, I mean, he's got the contract with Black America. This is something completely opposite. It's completely opposite. This is something that every Black family can strive for right now. And I mean, it's something that we can do amongst ourselves. It's an acronym that we came up with, and it's called effort. And I really, really am true to this. I think we can do anything if we apply effort to it. The first E is for education. I mean, we must focus on education and educate our own children. Make them read, have an influence on what they read, have an education focus inside your household, not just for your children, but for you. I mean, there should always be a continuous education. I mean, we should not be worried if they're teaching the critical race theory in school and stuff, because we can teach our kids whatever we want to. They're on our agenda. The next FF in the acronym, that stands for family focus. And that's one of the most important. Our focus must be on our family. That's what we can affect now as African Americans. We have to slow the trend of having children out of wedlock. The number one indicator for poverty in America, regardless of race, is single parent households. More than 72% of children in the African American community are born out of wedlock. This more than doubles the 32% of our Caucasian counterparts. For me and Tamlin, we finally broke this trend in our family, because no one, going up to our great grandparents, since then, nobody has remained married in our whole family, for both of our lines. And that's kind of troubling. And like, it's a trickle down effect with these single parent households. Single parent households, like they pretty much raised single family households, and houses with families raise houses with families. So I mean, just like in our family, I mean, when the grandparents got divorced, the parents got divorced. And I mean, it's been a trickle down effect for us, and hopefully we've changed that trend, and hopefully we've changed our family tree. The next O is for ownership. And this is not just the ownership that I talked about before, but we must take pride in ownership. The main reason we're able to be oppressed now is the fact that African Americans don't own anything. I mean, that's the simple truth. We don't have power. We must strive for ownership of businesses, our own homes, and assets that we control. I mean, that if we own our own businesses, I mean, that is what drives employment. We also have to take pride in our neighborhoods and clean up our communities. That's something that we can do right now. The R is for responsibility. You have to take responsibility and fix ourselves and our families. I'm not too sure if you guys are familiar with the pedestrian concept, but the pedestrian concept says, if you're a pedestrian and you're hit by a vehicle driven by a billionaire and he offers to pay for your rehab, you really got two options. You can either whine about it because you're hit and continue to stress over that and not do anything about it and remain disabled for the rest of your life and continue to not do anything and remain helpless, or you can use your resources provided by the physical therapy that he's paying for and step by step eventually walk again using that physical therapy. The only way you'll ever walk again is option 2. So I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that person would have to fix themselves. So yes, we have been redlined. We have been policed differently. We were enslaved for 400 years, and we have been discriminated against, and we pretty much still are. But the only way we'll change our condition is if we take responsibility and take a step-by-step approach to eventually changing ourselves as a culture. The last T, it stands for treasure. And this is what I treasure the most. We must love ourselves. We have to stop hating ourselves. We're the survivors of the African diaspora and the Western Passage. We're the world's finest and richest of all of our African descendants. We don't need to bleach our skins and we don't need to look like them. I think we're like the only culture in the world that makes movies and music that denigrates our beautiful Black woman and makes a cartoonish view of our Black man that promotes killing our Black brothers and treats our Black women as sex object. And I mean, that's got to stop. That's got to stop inside our households. That's got to stop with us individually. That's got to stop as mothers. We have to stop putting up with this from our sons, and we have to, control what they watch. And we must love each other. And this is where it starts, right here. But that's effort. So I mean, that's something that we made up. Hopefully that'll be some help to you. And hopefully we can get that movement going. I mean, I think me and Tammy came up with that like a month ago, but we're really looking at something that could help people and something that people could remember.
And before he goes to the resources slide, one of the things that really hit us as we were coming up is yes, it's very difficult to get this and to achieve this. It's hard for us. It was a very long process, not just with our differences, because we had to overcome our divergent thoughts when it came to financial independence, but also we were in the rat race. I mean, both he and I, full-time military, third generation, fourth generation military. And we were like, let's stop this. We don't want our children to join because they have other opportunities. But we went through deployments where we didn't see each other in a matter of 4 years. We didn't see each other for about 2.5. So he was on deployment, I was on deployment in the field, exercises. We worked 12 to 18 hours a day, weekends. We were tired, fatigued. And really, who's raising our children? It wasn't us. We weren't there. Luckily, we had the financial independency to kind of hire a nanny because we had to work or my father would come in and watch the children. So it's difficult to get there. But as we were going through our journey, one of the key eye openers was when we sold this last house, because we used to live in DC. And the young couple that, and I say young, bought our house in Alexandria, they literally got married, and they had a trust fund. The young lady had a trust fund in her name given to her by her father, and she bought our house in cash. So you're talking about a parent that was able to give their child $1 million and say, here's $1 million for your first home. So, I mean, that's what we want to be able to provide for our children. You know, imagine them getting out of school debt free, having their own property, having their own car. They're already going to be light years ahead of their counterparts. So, very important for us.
Yeah. Rosalind, can you go to the next slide? Okay, so this is the last slide, and then I'll turn it over to you, Rosalind. But here are a couple of resources that helped us along this financial journey. I'll tell you that me and Rosalind, we met on the FIRE Facebook page. It has 20,000 members, and it's a great place to share information with people who have common goals with the FIRE movement. The way we learned about real estate, and I'll be honest with you, we didn't take any classes. What we did was like, we listened to hours and hours and hours of podcasts. That's what we did. And we tried stuff out, but it was, I mean, we're probably piling in about 3 or 4 hours of podcasts a day. Bigger Pockets podcast and Epic Real Estate Investing podcast. Those are good podcasts. The links are on the page, and they have mountains of free information. One of the other tools that we use in our financial journey was Mint. It's an app that tracks your net worth, really. That's what we use it for. But it's a great tool for tracking net worth over time. Sometimes it's great to have all your debts and assets and income in one place. It gives you a snapshot of your overall financial health. It's important to track it over time so you can ensure that your wealth is moving in the right direction.
And then, like he was saying, with your circle of friends, as we began to look into investing and slowly investing, our friends changed too. So we met people that were doing exactly what we were doing, or property managing, or doing some kind of a portfolio that has all of the different things that touch upon real estate. So that was another great resource, like minds that are able to share information when it comes to taxes or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, improving your circle. Yes. Mm-hmm. Also, Blinkers. That's the only thing that costs money on here, but I think it's well worth it. It's about $100, but it saves time. You're more to make up for it in time. It summarizes all books in under 10 to 15 minutes. This is how we pour through knowledge quickly, and it allows us to pick the great books to actually read or not read. But I mean, we could pour through that knowledge and know what's inside that book, and it's very helpful. What's that? All right, the Signature Artisan Soap. This is a plug for my daughter and my wife's soap business. They wouldn't let me do this without giving them this plug.
So I'm gonna put the plug in. So the soap business was started because the kids, they weren't really athletically inclined, and they didn't want to do what regular kids did. And so since we started getting all this time back, because we were towards the end of our career and we weren't really looking at finding jobs once we got out the military, I made my children start their own business. So the daughter was about 8 at the time, and my son was about 12, 13 at the time. And it was just a way for me to break the cycle of us sending our kids to join the military as well. It was a way for me to say, hey, if you work hard, you can make some extra money by actually having a product to sell. And it was very, very cool, especially since we were up in DC, because we were able to set up little booths at a black vendor events, and it was educational for them and educational for me because we were able to set up our own EIN, trial and error, because experience is the key. The kids are on the, even though they're not old enough to be actually a part of the business, I made them do the contract and sign the contract about their responsibilities. So it was a great way for me to spend time with them, because now I have my time to show them that there's something else out there, such as starting your own business, running your own business, accounting. And even though we're not quite there yet, at least it has been a way to put something in back of their mind that, hey, I can start my own, I can do my own. It's not that hard. All I have to do is have the courage to go out there and do it, fail or not fail. If I fail, it's just experiences that I garner and that I gain, so that the mistake won't be made next time.
Yeah. If you want to contact us for one-on-ones, our email points of contact are in the left-hand corner. And like I said, in closing, the biggest mistake that you can make is to believe that you're working for someone else. So go build your own destinies and go change your family trees. I thank you for having me. Now I want to open this up for question and answer. Rosalind, back to you.
This is great stuff. Love the acronym effort. I'm like, I wrote that down in the margin. I'm like, I need to put that on my refrigerator or something just to remember all the different pieces along your journey. Now, one of the first questions is, whose idea was it to get into real estate first? And I know a couple of ladies were saying, well, goodness, I want to do this, but I need to get my husband on board. And so sometimes it's a little harder, especially when one person might be inclined and another person is like, I don't know if we should do this. Whose idea was it to get started? And then how did you get the other party engaged?
So funny story. He was deployed, and we were in Clarksville. So he was in Afghanistan or Iraq. One of them. And I said, I want to buy a house. So we were renting at the time, and we were captains. This was in 2005.
Yeah.
And I bullied him into getting our first house. He was worried about stuff going on in Afghanistan. We're both in the military. We were both in the military, so that's why I can joke about it. But so I bullied him. He signed the paperwork, and he came home to the children, and I moved into our new house. And in about a year or two after that, we moved. But I insisted that we keep the house, and he wanted to sell, so we were clashing. It's not easy because the divergent thoughts. And so I won that argument, and we kept the house, but it turned out to be that was our start to really thinking, hey, this is actually generating us some money. And one of the things that we kind of diverge on is the risk and conservative. So I am like, jump right into it, let's do it. And he's more conservative. So as a couple, we've had to meet in the middle kind of. And so he wanted to pay off the house. I was like, no, let's just rack up more debt and get more houses. So what we did is we kind of have a balanced portfolio. So we did pay off that house. But then when we sold that house, we bought how many other properties?
We bought 5 houses with that money that we sold that house with.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, just that was our start right there. I bullied him, and then I acquiesced to his wanting to have a portfolio where most of it is, paid off. Some of it is not paid off. So it was just us coming together and seeing eye to eye.
Okay.
Now, if you could do things all over again, obviously the bullying worked. That makes sense. As usual, the woman is usually right. But if you could do things all over again, what are some of the things that you would do differently along your journey?
I'll let you tell what you go ahead first.
Oh, if I could do it all over again, I mean, I would just be staying in duplexes. I would stay in the duplexes, and I mean, I wouldn't have. So like, here's the thing, we stayed in this, we're in the military for 20 years, and we stayed in this debt column for about probably like 11 of it. And like, we only started investing like we got debt free at year 11. And then we really started investing at year 12. And by, I think about year 17, we already hit our number. I mean, we're good to go. So if I could do it all over again, number one, I would have started this a long time ago. I would have started investing like sooner. I wouldn't have created that debt, and I would have moved straight into duplexes. Would have moved into duplexes, stay on one side and rent out the other, and then leave, and then move on to the next one. I mean, we probably would have had like 20 to 30 houses right now.
So for me, I think I would have focused more on my wants and my needs. You know, there's a difference between what I want. I want that nice car, which we didn't go there, but I spend a lot of money on Amazon now. But vice what we need, and I would have started investing earlier. Like he said, we're in the military, so we move every couple years. Instead of renting or getting an apartment, I would have invested that money into a property. It might not have been the nicest property because, you know, I was just starting out, but at the end of the day, it would have been mine. And when I moved, I could have either pulled out the equity to buy another house, or rent it out and keep it in my portfolio. And then also, I know in the introduction that she said I have my PhD, and I did that because I wanted to be the first member of my family to do that. But now in hindsight, when I think about it, that PhD cost me $120,000, and it is paid off. However, I could have taken that $120,000 and, you know, put it towards 6 properties, which would be generating money right now. And since I don't want to go back to work because I still have a 10-year-old and a 16-year-old, and that time is important to me, I could have just invested that more wisely. And the last thing is property management. We learned the hard way when Kendrick was deployed. No, I was deployed at the time. And we wanted to, we used a property management person who was ex-military, old retired Vietnam guy. And we wanted to give him our business because we wanted to support small businesses. But he ended up embezzling money from his organization, and we lost out on a lot of money from properties that he was managing from us. So I would really look at my property management person.
Yeah, interview them, interrogate them, make sure you get you know, make sure you talk to other people.
Yeah.
About the business.
Not saying that property management is a bad thing. As we got more property management and we were able to find great fits for us, we found two property managers that are phenomenal. We buy our property from them and they manage our property because we're not in that city. One lady, she manages 5 properties for us, 5, and she is a pit bull, and I love her to death. So that just be wise and be very careful about who you bring into your professional circle.
Yep.
Now, how are you vetting these property managers? I know you said you have a few different cities. Now, how are you picking those cities as well? Talked a little while ago about investing in different cities. So of course, if you're in a high cost of living city, you may say, goodness gracious, I can't buy here. So how are you choosing some of those different cities? And then how are you choosing good fits in terms of property managers?
So for us, it's very simple. We were in the HR arena in the military. So we only, well, I'm not gonna say we only, because we did venture off, but we paid tuition for that. But we only buy houses in military areas. We only buy houses in military areas, and we buy the quality properties. The properties that we're looking for, they cost a little over $100,000, and they must rent for $1,000, and they have to be built after 2000. So there are minimum maintenance issues. Why we choose the military is because they have a very, very high op tempo, meaning they move a lot. So if your house vacates, you're always going to have a tenant move right into it. I mean, there's going to be a waiting list for it.
And we didn't have any issues with COVID either when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
not getting paid money in those areas.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, like, they get paid a basic housing allowance for staying in those areas. So, I mean, we know that nobody's going to be unemployed inside those areas, and they'll always have enough money to pay what your rent is. The other thing is that when we bought in Kansas City, I mean, we didn't have problems getting people in and out of the properties. What we had problems with is they trashed the places after they left. You don't get that from the military. They take care of your properties. I mean, these things can, like, they can vacate the property and somebody can come back in that's 5 days.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a very, very high occupancy rate. And I mean, our houses don't go unrented for more than, I mean, I think the most we had was like about 2 weeks.
Oh, that's amazing. Now you talked a little bit about how you pick your locations, how you pick your homes, and I'm guessing you're, of course, reaching out to your military resources in order to find your tenants, because that's pretty simple. Can you tell us a little bit about how long you went from house one to where you are right now with the 10 properties?
I think
Yeah.
the first thing that we did is we bought house one in 2005.
Yep.
And for us at the time, it was a pretty hefty amount. How much was that house? Like 172 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we were young, in our 20s. And when we purchased that house, we were not debt free.
Right.
And so we literally put a pause on purchasing more because we realized we needed to get rid of this student loan debt. We had cars, so we wanted to get rid of the car debt and all these little ancillary things that were tearing up our budget, right? And then in 2009, when the stock market crashed, that was another big eye opener. So we really didn't go heavy into investing because we wanted to become debt free first with bad debt. And then once we got rid of all those little bills, we started to see all this income coming in and income from that other house. So the next house that we bought after we handled our personal, finances was, when was that?
2013. Yeah. So in between 2013 and 2017, we bought 15 houses.
Wow.
In that short time span. Yep.
That's because we had to clean up our own act.
Because
for the most part,
it's very easy to will and deal, like if you're debt free.
Yeah.
I mean, you can turn it around. You can turn those houses very quick because all we needed is $20,000. And like once you start to get those assets, I mean, you pick up $20,000 like that, like nothing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, are there any properties that you self-manage? So you have the property manager, but there are any, okay. And is there a reason why you choose to go that route?
It's not passive. So we had properties in Kansas City and we weren't even self-managing those.
We didn't even see them before we bought them.
Yeah, but it was still the properties in Kansas City, they were giving us a lot of problems. I mean, we stay on the phone and we stay like doing stuff for them, and we didn't like that. We wanted these properties to be pretty much the properties that we buy, they're turnkey. So we don't do anything for them. We turn it over there to the property management. They take their 10%, and like that 10% is like I mean that frees us up because we don't want to do that work.
They're turnkey now. But when we first started, because of course we didn't have money, we were just starting up, they were not turnkey, but it was fun because, for example, we found a house in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We bought it for $69.
Yeah.
$69. We had our kids in the house painting. We took down the cabinets. We kept all of our receipts from Lowe's. We started the renovation project ourselves, and the stuff that we couldn't do, such as the HVAC and the carpet, we hired somebody. So we put about $10,000 in the house, and our kids helped, right? So it was a good learning experience. But the stuff that we put into the house after we bought it, that was a write-off as well.
Yeah.
So we ended up paying 79 in total for this house. But how much does it rent out for now?
Over 1,000.
Over 1,000, and it's paid off because it was such a small property, a cute little cottage bungalow style house, but it was worth it. And the management, like I said, she does everything for us without any headaches.
Yeah, our properties are in like on 4 different locations. So I mean, here's the key right here. So what we learned was that, and this is the tuition that we paid, that first house was a good learning point for us. Don't try and invest in a house that you will live in yourself. Invest in the houses that everybody can afford. So we primarily stick to 3-bedroom, 2-bath in the military areas. And I mean, that broadens the population. What we didn't know about ourselves is like, we're like the top 5%. There's a small population of people who rent those houses. So those houses will sit. Those three to 2-bedroom bathrooms. I mean, 3-bedroom, 2 baths. I mean, those fly off the market, and those are highly sought after, and most people can afford those. And the other thing that we noticed was that we don't have to be inside these locations. I mean, some of these houses we never even seen before. We don't have to be in these houses. We don't have to be near these houses. I mean, as long as we were plugged into the system and we know how everything works, I mean, it's going to take care of itself, and we trust the process.
Now that's a good point. So you're buying houses sight unseen. Who are you relying on to locate these deals and broker these deals on your behalf?
Well, we know the area. We rely on the real estate agents. So we establish a pretty good rapport with the real estate agent when we come in and we purchase our house that we live in. And like the one in Fayetteville, North Carolina, we bought a house in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We lived in it, but we also wanted that real estate agent to have a property management business. That's what works for us. So we let them know up front, like, hey, we're buying this house, but while we're here, we're gonna buy about 3 or 4 more inside this area. So what they do is they bring the houses to us.
Mm-hmm.
They bring the houses to us. I mean, I get about 4 or 5 emails a day of like deals and houses. You get on these investor lists and they send you the houses, and like what the check and balance is for us, if we do not see the property, is we pay a lot of money for the inspector.
Yeah.
We pay a lot of money for that inspector. That inspector is a double-edged sword, because I mean, that inspector works for us. We don't go with anything that the real estate agent suggests, and we try and find the most quality one in the area, and we pay the money for it. And then we come back to the table and renegotiate after that inspector busts them across the head. And we can go back to the table, and because they'll go in there and find everything, and we'll get a pretty good picture of what that house looks like and what's all in it and what all we're signing up for.
And what needs to be fixed, so we can maybe talk down the price of the home that we're looking at.
Yeah.
Well, this is really good information. I know we're coming right up on the hour. Ladies, if you have any other questions, be sure to go ahead and drop those in the chat to make sure that we address those. But one question that I have for you all, because you're both in your early 40s, so much more life to go. Where do you see yourself, or your vision for yourself and your family in the next 5 years?
So I plan on stalking my children for the next 5 years, ensuring that they move out happily and very progressively. And on the side, maybe volunteer work when COVID is done running its cycle, doing some volunteer work and just enjoying the home that I have and being able to spend my time in actually upgrading my house the way I want it, since we were never able to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the real hard part. Like once you get out and you have all this time to think about yourself and what you're gonna do. I mean, you really have to come to grips with yourself and make that best person. Me, I want to be like this Renaissance man. I want to write books. I want to do things for the kids. It's for me, it's all about the kids right now. I mean, I want to make sure that they have the best life. So like when that oldest one, when he goes up to the college, I mean, I want to make sure that I buy him a car. I want to make sure I buy him a house, like while he's there, so he can start his real estate investment company. And like I'm teaching him now, like how to run this real estate investment company. So like when it's time for me to say I don't want to do it anymore, I want to go backpack in Europe. You know that's what I can do. And I mean, I want to volunteer as well for the kids, and make sure that they have it better than we do.
We have another question about how old are your children?
Uh, uh, 10 years old. Gabby's 10 years old. We got a 16-year-old. He's um he's in high school right now, and then we have a 22-year-old.
I think that's key too, just of having that time, those last few years before they go off into the world and live their dreams. So that's definitely something that a lot of the parents might actually say, this is even more of a motivation. So you can have that time. COVID gave us a lot more time at home to enjoy our families. And I think it's going to be harder to leave that lifestyle and go back to what we experienced pre-COVID.
Mhm.
So Tammy and Ken, any closing remarks for the ladies as they kind of think and plot out and decide, does this make sense for them? One, truly a passive investment that you describe. And I think so many people do it a number of different ways, whether they're actively flipping their own houses or actively going out and finding these deals or self-managing. You all have really put a process in place that is truly a passive investment. So I'm happy that you provided your contact information so people can reach out and get additional information. Any closing remarks for the ladies if they say this is the direction that I want to go in?
I would say just be in it for the long haul. It's a long process, becoming debt free and going down a path, especially if you're starting us out like us, where our parents weren't able to provide us with anything except for good advice and love and a great home environment. So just look at it and know that it's not quick. It'll take time, or maybe not. Maybe some of you can just jump in and do great things from the beginning. But because we had children and we were in debt, it took some time and it took trial and error. And don't be stymied by the first roadblock that you encounter. It's just a learning experience.
I think that's good stuff. I mean, it takes time and it's definitely a part of the overall journey. I want to thank you all for sharing your journey, sharing your path, sharing a little bit about what you've learned along the way, your struggle, and definitely just a simple different perspective in terms of having a niche in terms of where you buy properties and your demographic in terms of renters too, because I know we haven't really heard the military angle, but I know we have a lot of ladies who are in the military or their significant other is in the military. So that's something just to look at and think of, because there are so many different ways that you can really make this journey your own. So I want to thank you for your insights tonight. And definitely, ladies, check out the YouTube channel, subscribe to the channel if you missed it. So I know a few people might have had to join a little bit later. You'll be able to view the entire video there as well. Thank you again for joining us. And please be sure to join us next Monday for another Great Money Monday. Have a great night. Goodbye.